I grew up in a funeral home. I helped out in the office. When I was about 15, we got a call from a man whose wife and infant baby had been murdered in cold blood. There were very few clues. It made headlines. Cops set up surveillance at the viewing. It was heartbreaking, as the mother was holding the baby in her arms. I was asked to take the flower cards and periodically get the husband and ask if he recognized the names. I then photocopied them and put them back. I did it because I was a kid. People knew me, and I was unobtrusive. I talked to the husband quite a bit. He seemed devastated and shaken. The cops told me they had an eyewitness to someone leaving the house the day of the murder. The witness was a 3-year-old girl. She recognized the man leaving. It was the husband's best friend. Turns out that the friend and the husband had made a pact to kill each other's families and run off with their secretaries. The little girl identified the friend, and I guess one of them cracked. They both went to jail on multiple counts, all on the testimony of a 3-year-old. I still cannot believe to this day that that man stood right beside me multiple times, and I had no clue. I don't think I ever looked at life the same way after that. My great-aunt woke up in the middle of the night. She heard her dog making these low growls. She was single at the time and living alone in her ranch-style home. She walked out to her living room to check things out. She didn't see or hear anything out of the ordinary. So she decided to make sure her door and front windows were locked. Door was locked. First window she checked was locked. When she lifted the mini blind on the second window, it was wide open, and a guy in a ski mask was standing there. She said he laughed this evil laugh and said, "Party time." Then he started to climb in. She screamed that she had a gun. Her dog started barking his head off. The would-be rapist decided to bolt. My aunt did get a gun after that, and learned how to use it. Everything to do with Haj Mohammed Mesfioui. He was a shoemaker who lived in Morocco in the late 19th and early 20th century. He and his accomplice, a 70-year-old woman called Anna, used to drug and kill young women who came to the shop. Eventually, one of the victims' parents traced her movements to the shop, and after the remains of 36 mutilated corpses were discovered nearby Mesfioui and Anna were questioned and tortured. Anna didn't survive, but Mesfioui confessed to murdering them, usually for a tiny amount of money. His initial sentence was crucifixion, a very unusual punishment even then. However, there were many protests from powerful foreign embassies, and Morocco couldn't do much against them. Instead, he was sentenced to beheading, a more common punishment. However, the mood in Marrakesh was that this was far too lenient, so they settled on immurement, being walled up alive. A special cell was constructed in the wall of the bazaar, about 6 feet. Chains were attached to one wall to ensure he would be kept standing. Mesfioui wasn't told of his fate until the morning of his execution, when he was led, screaming, in chains, and slowly bricked up inside. Once the last course had been laid, the crowd would fall silent until he started screaming, when they would cheer. He screamed nearly constantly for 2 days. On the 3rd day, he fell silent. Donguola Rasalaite, 9th May 1983, 10th January 2000, was a Lithuanian girl who was sold as a sex slave in Sweden in late 1999. Her mother had abandoned her when she was 14 years old and left for the USA. When she was 15 to 16 years old, she was sent from Lithuania by an older man who pretended to be her boyfriend. He promised her a job as a berry picker in Sweden and gave her a fake passport. When she arrived in Sweden, a man welcomed her and locked her in an apartment in Malmö. He said she had to pay him 20,000 kroner for her passport and the transportation from Lithuania to Sweden. She soon understood she would be working as a prostitute. Rasalaite was forced to work as a prostitute for 2 weeks before she escaped the apartment she was imprisoned in. On 7 January 2000, she jumped off a bridge in Malmö after escaping from the apartment and getting raped by a group of men who pretended they would help her. She died 3 days later, at a hospital. Her case stirred much debate on human trafficking. I served a short stint as a fireman. There was a RTA call one morning, 30 minutes after I started my shift. This guy got T-boned while driving home after a night of heavy drinking. He got T-boned on the passenger side when he ran a red light. His wife died instantly, and he pretty much remained unharmed. When we arrived at the scene, he was outside his car while the wife was still seated in the passenger seat. Her lower body was still in her seat, while her upper torso splayed over to the driver's side. Looks like she was just reaching over to the driver's side to open the door. Just that she's unconscious and non-reactive. No blood at all from what we can see from the driver's side. The passenger's door was caved in badly. The driver was still tipsy and thought nothing of what's happening, kept asking us to hurry up and extract his wife so that they can head back home, laughing and fumbling around with the police. When the paramedics realized that there was no pulse, we tried extracting her from the driver's side, and we realized that her lower left body, her left pelvis to her thigh, was completely crushed, and she was impaled through her left abdomen by a piece of the door. When we told him that his wife has died, probably bled out minutes after the impact, you could see the disbelief, stop kidding me, slowly morphing into realization, then ending up as desperation. And he was immediately sober and ran over to the driver's side, tried to pull his wife out. It tore her wound up, and we had to drag him out. He then proceeded to the passenger side and tried to pry the cave door open. We left the scene then and let the police handle the aftermath. Saw it on the news that afternoon.